Good evening, I'm Sandeep Gurumurthy joining you live from our Mumbai news centre and straight to the top story tonight. Softbank CEO in waiting, Nikesh Arora is stepping down. The India-born poster boy of the Japanese telecommunications giant, who was handpicked by the company's founder Masayoshi Son as a successor, said he has decided to move on as Masa wants to head the company for a few years more. Interestingly, Arora's resignation comes a day after a Softbank panel gave him a clean chit, rejecting investor complaints against him. Arora says he will remain as an advisor to Softbank for at least a year.
Arora has been facing investor fury for his questionable investments worth $4 billion, mostly in startups across the world, as well as hefty pay package that he received, which was $135 million from Softbank in 2014 and another $73 million last year. The list of his Indian investments include companies like Snapdeal, Housing.com, Ola Cabs, Grofers and OYO Rooms. His position became shaky ever since Softbank's debt burden did rise $80 billion, forcing the company to slash its stake in leading companies like China's Alibaba. Arora's sudden exit from Softbank is indeed our top story right here on India Tonight.
He almost had a rock star status in the Indian startup story. Nikesh Arora, widely tipped to succeed Masayoshi Son at the $68 billion Softbank Group, has decided to quit quite abruptly. A decision prompted perhaps by Masayoshi Son himself, who had earlier planned of handing over the reins to Nikesh and then later changed his mind. And it's perhaps this decision of Son, who had handpicked Arora to continue for longer than planned, is why Nikesh has decided to move on. After joining Softbank nearly 2 years ago, Nikesh has been the biggest funder in the Indian startup ecosystem. He has written out checks worth nearly $4 billion around the world in his quest for the next breakthrough in technology. In India alone, Arora has invested not in one, not two, but as many as 5 startups. For startups now that are a worried lot, Nikesh promises to keep the faith alive. But it is exactly these investments that earned him the ire of investors. Some shareholders didn't just raise questions on a clutch of deals he inked, but his jaw-dropping annual pay package as well. However, the special committee investigating allegations raised against him found all claims were without merit. And Nikesh asserted a day after, as he quit his job, that he doesn't regret the losses in investing. Nikesh Arora has been a high flyer, and before he developed a taste for sushi in Tokyo, he was a long-time executive at Google, in charge of marketing and partnerships. For now, Nikesh says his next destination is too early to decide. But given the fact that he has committed to nurturing startups with or without Softbank, should calm the suddenly worried Indian startups looking for funders with deep pockets. Chandra R. Shrikant, ET Now, Bangalore.
Now, this move comes a day after the committee set up to look into investor allegations of conflict of interest and, of course, to track Nikesh's own past record, has given a clean chit to Nikesh Arora. Chandra Shrikant is joining in to take that story forward. What exactly does this mean for India, Chandra, at this point in time, given that Softbank was aggressively investing in India, and we did tell in our story not one, not two, but 5 big companies that they had invested in, money over $2 billion, and that's almost half of what he invested globally, which is around $5 billion there.
On the face of it, it could certainly dampen sentiment as far as the Indian startup ecosystem is concerned, because he's obviously been a very prolific backer of startups here, deploying $2 billion across companies, some of which include unicorns such as Snapdeal and Ola. But considering, that these companies are now going for follow-on rounds of investing, questions remain on how successful they will be with no Nikesh Arora to really lead affairs at Softbank. But Nikesh has said that he will continue to advise these companies at least for a year or so. But on this larger implications, we did speak to a lot of investors, entrepreneurs in the startup ecosystem. They say that, the fundamentals haven't changed, that India remains a very attractive market for foreign investors, and that Softbank will continue to be bullish in India, on India with or without Nikesh Arora. From a valuation perspective, it could also bring a certain correction or at least some sense of reality, because valuations had really run up in the period that Softbank was very active in the Indian market. Perhaps there will be a reality check as far as that is concerned.
All right, Chandra, putting it in perspective, but let's take that story forward, because this is a shocking development. Took the entire startup community by surprise, coming a day after he got that nod or that okay from that internal panel that was set up. We've got two special guests joining us on this show this evening. We've got K. Ganesh, serial entrepreneur and investor, joining us, and Venki Ganeshan joining us live from San Francisco, managing director at Menlo Ventures. Thank you so much, Venki, for joining us live from Frisco. Really appreciate you joining us on the show. I'm going to start off with you. How surprised were you by this move of Nikesh Arora to call it quits, coming just a day after he got that clearance that everyone was kind of wary about? How surprised were you?
Great to be on the show, Sandeep. Very surprised. I don't think anybody expected this. But then again, if you think about it, there can only be one king in the jungle. And I think when it became clear that Masa was going to be king for a few more years, I don't think there was any chance that Nikesh would stay. So in that sense, I think it's probably the right call. Nikesh is a lion, and the lion needs to be the king.
But Venki, this is Supriya Srinath, and it's good to be catching up with you right here from India. But a very quick question really coming your way. As far as the timing of this move is concerned, this comes just a day after he got the clean chit from that probe panel that did not find any merit in allegations that were raised against him. So in some sense, he was just waiting to come clean and then quit, it seems.
Well, I think it didn't make sense for Nikesh to make any move till he got a clean chit. I think he is a proud person. He's a very straightforward, ethical person. I think the allegations that were made against him were baseless. And now that he got a clean chit, I felt like he could move on. If he made the decision before the clean chit, there would always be some cloud over what reasons prompted him to make that move. The timing makes sense to me.
All right, let's get in Mr. K. Ganeshan as well. And like Venki was pointing out there, this is a rather surprise move that has come in. But considering he was one of the most prolific investors here in the last 1 year in India, at least, what do you make of this exit?
No, my first reaction is of surprise, because I didn't expect it, and he has been a big bull in India and given a lot of very large investments and tickets in India. So it came as a surprise to me. It was unexpected.
Right. Venki, I know you've kind of answered, but I'm still going to try and push my luck a little harder. As a journalist, it's my job to be inquisitive. And back about the timing, the reason, one way of interpreting it is he was waiting for the clearance from the panel and then he's quit. The other way could be that maybe it wasn't all okay. Maybe there was something in it which forced them to strike a deal and pave the way for a graceful exit, so to say. Skeptics would say that may have happened as well. Would you rule that out?
Well, listen, it's the job of the press to ask questions, and I think you should, and there's nothing wrong with that. I just think we have to go with what the facts are in the situation, and if you read the facts, I think the board gave him a clean chit. Now, that is a major statement. It is them coming out and making a public statement that everything is good. That's not done lightly. Lawyers would have looked through every element of this before they made it. My personal opinion was this was a storm in a teacup. Nikesh, the allegations made with him were baseless. He has a long track record. Nikesh has a 15-year track record of creating tremendous value in Silicon Valley, and no one can question that. And so I'm going to go with the most obvious conclusion, which is that there was no room for two kings, and Nikesh wanted to be king.
Fair enough. K. Ganesh, let me throw it to you. Let's talk about the impact of this. I know we've spoken a lot about timing, but let's talk about the impact as well. What impact do you see this having on the largest startup ecosystem here in India? In many ways, Nikesh was a poster boy, wasn't he? Startups were just, clamoring to just get an appointment from him, every time he visited India. He was the poster boy. Do you think Softbank will be less enthusiastic about investing in Indian startups from here on, or at least the quantum that they invest from here on?
Yeah, no, specifically Softbank's deployment for the next 1 year or next 2 to 3 years, I personally don't know. And I don't think it will have too much of impact on that basis, because I think India, the macro factors, the opportunity is very strong. Let's be very clear about this. People came into India, whether it is Softbank, whether it is Tiger Global, whether it's other hedge funds or large players, Alibaba, they came into India because of the opportunity in India and the potential for next 5 to 10 years vis-a-vis any other opportunity at any other part of the world. I mean, China and US have slowed down. There is no opportunity there really to deploy funds. And in India, we are far behind. The party is just starting in terms of building large companies. We have just got a small taste of it by companies, unicorns, or companies which are 10 times decacorns, have shown that India has got the depth to be able to actually transact using technology, transact using internet. You can build billion-dollar valuations in India, multiples of $1 billion valuations in India. People, the common man in India will buy online, whether it's groceries from Big Basket or e-commerce products from Snapdeal and Flipkart. They will use Uber and use Ola for taxi rides. All of that has been established. So that is an irreversible process that has started, and largely helped by Softbank, by Nikesh Arora, by other players who brought in money. And therefore, I don't think anything is going to change, and I don't think it will change because of one company, one investor, or one individual manager in that particular fund.
Venki, comment on that. I mean, you know a thing or two about investing as well, and you've invested in some of the biggest companies. But do you believe the focus on India is going to continue as far as Softbank is concerned? I mean, Nikesh at one level did understand the India story a lot better, and which is why if you see the plethora of investments that he made here were very consumerist in nature. So from a Snapdeal to an OYO to an Ola, do you believe that kind of focus on India will continue at Softbank, or will we actually see some amount of recalibration of focus happen there?
I'm sorry, is that question to me?
That's right, it is to you.
So I actually think, and I heard Ganesh's comment before, I agree that long-term the India story is very much intact. I do think there's going to be a massive recalibration in the short term. Softbank is not just any other investor, it's actually the largest investor. I think them, along with Tiger Global, have been funneling billions of dollars. And I think one of the challenges in India is that if you don't get these kind of huge loads of capital available for Indian consumer startups like Ola or Snapdeal, then what will happen is the Uber of India is going to be Uber, the Amazon of India is going to be Amazon. And I think this is a big change. And so I do feel that in the short term, Softbank and Nikesh leaving is going to change the dynamics of huge capital raises in the short term in Indian in the Indian e-commerce scene, and it's going to absolutely have an effect on the startup world.
I want to have a quick question with you, and I know we need to wrap this, but very quickly, if I may ask you, because of people like Nikesh Arora who really got in and got this whole exuberance as far as the startup community is concerned, Venki, do you believe an exit of Nikesh will perhaps lead to more realistic valuations, some amount of recalibration there? We've already seen some amount of recalculation happen in the last 1 odd month with some of the biggest startups, but do you believe a lot more of that is going to happen? The irrational exuberance will perhaps give way to more pragmatic valuations.
Absolutely, Supriya. When Softbank sneezes, the Indian startup scene gets a cold. And there is no doubt to me that part of the valuation increases you've had over the last few years have been driven by people like Softbank and Tiger Global willing to pump billions of dollars. Now that Nikesh has stepped out, I think the biggest proponent of investing in India in Softbank is no longer there. And there will be an absolute impact. You can only give away other people's money for so long, and that's what Snapdeal and Flipkart have been doing. Now that the sugar daddy is no longer there to give them the cash, I think they'll have to figure out how to become a profitable business. This is a good thing, though, in the long run, because building a sustainable long-term business is how you actually build long-term value, not by giving away a rupee for 99 cents.
comment on that, K. Ganesh. Let you have the last word on this. Do you agree with Venki there, indicating that that Nikesh Arora's exit could bring about some recalibration of valuations? We've seen this irrational exuberance in the startup community here in India over the last, as far as valuations are concerned, over the last year and a half. Do you see that getting adjusted now, coming back to reality? Do you see the industry finding a new normal?
Yeah, so I think that's a very interesting question. There was exuberance and there was high valuations, large ticket size that we saw in 2015 as compared to 2014, and 2016 has gone back to 2014 levels. So there was a period. Again, I would not hold one investor and one individual responsible for that, and because all of us got carried away. Okay, right? And I think it's good for the ecosystem that we were able to raise money, lot money came in, and that happened. Okay, right? So I don't think it's bad. It's good for the system, and I don't hold Nikesh Arora or Softbank responsible singularly for that. It is a function of multiple things that came together, and which all of us are responsible, equally responsible for it. And I'm not taking it in the negative sense. In the positive sense, so much money came into India, so much startups started. Now, did people overpay? Perhaps yes. Was the valuation justified? Perhaps no. Is that the right valuation for those companies that got hugely valued? Is that sustainable? Will it get corrected? Will it get come down? We are already seeing signs of that. But all of it is good for the ecosystem.
All right, Mr. K. Ganesh and Venki Ganeshan, who's joining us live all the way from the Valley. Thank you very much, both of you, for being with us. This is a big exit and one that is going to have repercussions on the Indian startup ecosystem. But thanks very much for sharing your thoughts with this evening. Write us with here on India Tonight.
Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/ETNow, and don't forget to click the like button. You can also follow us on Twitter at ETNowLive. To stay updated with all our programming, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel by logging on to youtube.com/user/ETNow.